What if I told you that everything you've been through wasn't random? What if the silence had a purpose? What if the tears you cried alone were recorded in places more powerful than you imagine? What if heaven was never silent, but simply watching to see how far you'd go without applause? And what if the moment you almost gave up was the exact moment something divine was released? You're not here by accident. This message is not a coincidence. It's an answer. Because heaven has something to say about your obedience, your pain, and the process you've survived. And today, you're about to understand why nothing you did was in vain. Stay with me. Because by the end of this video you won't just feel seen, you'll know you've been chosen. Topic 1. Heaven was watching you. There were moments when it felt like no one noticed. Your decisions, your tears, your quiet acts of obedience, they seemed to vanish into the air with no applause, no validation, no recognition. But heaven was watching you. The throne of God, surrounded by angels, did not miss a single detail. What looked like silence from earth was actually the stillness before a divine move. Heaven's gaze was fixed on your journey, not the public version that people saw, but the private one. The one where you chose to forgive even when it hurt. The one where you resisted temptation even when it whispered to you in secret. The one where you worshiped God not because things were easy, but because you knew He was still worthy. Those invisible moments weren't small, they were the moments that shifted your spiritual atmosphere. Because when heaven watches in silence, it doesn't mean it's ignoring you. It means it's waiting for the right time to respond. In the spiritual realm, your faith activated things you could not see. While you were busy obeying without an audience, angels were dispatched, scrolls were written, and your name echoed in places far beyond this earth. You were not overlooked. You were being trusted with a test that only the brave can endure. You see, heaven doesn't reward performance, it rewards character. And your character spoke loudly, even in the absence of applause. You didn't need a stage to prove your heart. The battle you faced in silence was actually more powerful than many victories shouted from rooftops. Every time you resisted bitterness, heaven applauded. Every time you chose love over resentment, mercy over revenge, and obedience over ease, your spirit advanced in ways you didn't realize. You were building something eternal. Not with bricks of ego, but with quiet decisions that shook hell itself. This message is not a metaphor, it's a confirmation. You thought nothing was happening, but much was happening behind the veil. God saw you. The Holy Spirit interceded for you. The angels recorded every moment. Even your sighs were sacred. The tears on your pillow were not wasted, they watered seeds of breakthrough. And while the world continued as if nothing happened, heaven stood still every time you said yes to God. You passed a test that most never see because it's fought in the invisible. But the result is very real. You are no longer who you were. Your decisions have echoed through eternity, and now the shift begins. Heaven watched, heaven moved, and heaven is about to reveal what it saw in you all along. Topic 2. You did what few would do. There were crossroads in your life where giving up would have made more sense. Times when quitting seemed easier than continuing. When no one would have blamed you if you stopped believing, stopped praying, stopped hoping. But you didn't. You obeyed even when it felt like obedience was costing you everything. You chose to remain faithful, not because it was convenient, but because deep inside your spirit, you knew God was still with you. That kind of obedience is rare. Most walk away when the pressure rises. Most let go of God's promises when the timeline stretches too far. But you held on. Not perfectly, not without fear or weakness, but you held on. That alone sets you apart. Because faith in the fire is not ordinary. Obedience in uncertainty is not popular. You walked a narrow path with trembling hands and a steady heart. And heaven calls that holy. When others took shortcuts, you chose the long road of integrity. When doors closed in your face, you didn't force them open through compromise. You stood still and trusted. You waited. You didn't sell your peace for temporary validation. You didn't trade your identity for applause. That posture, remaining faithful when you could have folded, is what separates warriors from wanderers. Obedience is not just about following rules. It's about alignment. It's about trust. You said yes to God when no would have protected your comfort. You planted seeds of sacrifice when no harvest was in sight. And that kind of posture, that rare and powerful surrender, activates movements in the supernatural that few people ever access. Because most people want miracles without obedience, rewards without sacrifice. But you chose both the pain and the promise. And that makes all the difference. Let it be known, your choices were not small in the eyes of God. Your actions, made in faith and without guarantee of reward, pierced the heavens. You passed tests that heaven gives only to those it's preparing to elevate. You trusted when you had every reason not to. You worshipped in the dark. You stayed when others ran. And because of that, you touched something sacred. God honors not just the loud declarations of faith, but the quiet decisions to remain when nothing makes sense. And that's exactly what you did. You didn't just survive the trial, you made a covenant with heaven in the middle of it. What you did, few would ever choose. But you chose it. And that's why what's coming next for you won't look like anything you've seen before. The cost was great, but the reward will be greater. Heaven saw your posture, and now heaven is preparing your portion. Topic 3. You won in silence. There are victories that don't come with applause. Triumphs that aren't posted, shared, or noticed. They happen in rooms with closed doors, in quiet battles between the flesh and the spirit, where the only witnesses are you, God, and the invisible war around you. And still, you won. Not because it was easy, but because you refused to let your soul bow to darkness. You didn't need a crowd to validate your breakthrough because your greatest enemy wasn't external, it was the storm inside. The sleepless nights, the confusion, the crushing weight of doubt. Yet you stood. You stood when you felt weak, when no one checked in, when it seemed like heaven itself was silent. And in that silence, a different kind of strength was born. A holy endurance. A divine authority. You didn't just survive. You won, and you did it without fanfare. That kind of victory is rare and sacred. Your healing didn't come through noise, but through surrender. You weren't delivered in front of an audience. You were delivered in the dark. Alone with God, you wrestled with your fears, your insecurities, your pain, and you came out changed. Not all scars are visible. Not all heroes are seen. But your silent obedience carved a path for something eternal. And heaven rejoiced, even if the earth remained quiet. You didn't need validation to keep going. That's what made you different. That's what made you dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Because people who win in silence carry a depth that cannot be shaken. They walk into rooms with a peace that isn't loud but is unbreakable. You weren't waiting for recognition. You were waiting for God. And He saw. He never missed a moment. The silence didn't mean abandonment, it meant consecration. Now the silence is breaking, not because you need validation but because it's time. Time for what you built in the secret place to begin bearing fruit in the open. Time for what was refined in the fire to shine like gold. Time for the quiet champion to step into visible authority. Your silence was a weapon, your tears were prayers, and your endurance was prophetic. There's a shift happening, and it's not random, it's a result. A result of what you endured when no one else saw. You didn't break. You didn't quit. And that silence you feared would last forever? It's now becoming the backdrop of your public testimony. You fought battles without recognition, and now God is preparing to honor you without limitation. Because those who win in silence are the ones God trusts to speak with power. You're not just a survivor. You're a vessel of victory. Topic 4. Heaven responded to your decision. Heaven doesn't sit back in silence when obedience reaches its peak. The moment you made that decision, the one that cost you comfort, logic, relationships, and even your own expectations, heaven moved. Your posture triggered alignment. You may not have seen thunder or lightning, but in the spirit realm, something shifted. That yes you whispered through trembling lips was louder than any sermon. That act of surrender, unnoticed by people, echoed in the courts of heaven. Angels were not just watching, they were activated. The moment your will aligned with the will of God, resistance started breaking, chains began falling, and portals opened. This is not poetic language. This is spiritual reality. Heaven does not ignore obedience. It answers it. And your decision wasn't small. It was the kind of obedience that provokes divine action. You need to understand the weight of what happened when you chose obedience over ease. While you were wrestling with emotions and spiritual pressure, heaven was setting things in motion. Assignments that had been delayed began to move forward. People who were resisting your purpose started being repositioned or removed. Doors that were sealed began to crack open. The unseen world responded. Because spiritual decisions carry supernatural consequences. You didn't just choose what was right, you aligned with God's strategy. That's when the resistance began to break. Not everything changed instantly, but everything began to align. Your simple decision on earth released complex strategies from heaven. While you were battling discouragement, heaven was building bridges. While you were crying alone, angels were being released. The weight of your obedience activated a wave of motion that is still unfolding now. And here's the truth. Some of the battles you thought were random were actually hell reacting to heaven's movement in your favor. Opposition increased because your yes carried weight. Darkness recognized what you were stepping into before you did. That's why warfare came right after your decision, because what you did wasn't just brave, it was prophetic. Your obedience wasn't just personal, it was generational. It began rewriting things in your bloodline, canceling patterns, restoring purpose. Heaven doesn't respond to emotion, it responds to alignment. And when your heart aligned with God's, all of heaven said, "Now." Your decision moved the hand of God. And even now, the ripple effect of that choice is still shaking things loose. Don't underestimate it. Heaven already responded. And what was initiated in the Spirit is about to manifest in your life with undeniable evidence. Topic 5. A new season has been released. There are moments when heaven doesn't ask you to enter a new season. It announces that the new season has already begun. Whether you feel ready or not, whether your environment reflects it yet or not, something shifted the moment you obeyed. You didn't just survive the test, you qualified for the promotion. And this new season isn't just a better version of the last one, it's a completely different dimension. You've crossed a spiritual threshold. What once fit no longer fits. What once worked now feels expired. That's because heaven has released you from the old framework. You're not walking in loops anymore, you're moving forward in divine direction. The clarity, the authority, the peace you're beginning to feel? That's not random. That's the atmosphere of a new season settling over your life. Something broke in the Spirit, and now favor is being poured where there used to be delay. God doesn't release new seasons casually. They are assigned. They are strategic. And they require a new version of you. That's why the fire came first. That's why the testing felt so long. You were being prepared to walk in a level of purpose, discernment, and influence that you could not have carried in your old mindset. The crushing had a purpose. It qualified you for clarity. The silence had a reason. It trained your ears to hear heaven. And now, because you proved faithful in what felt like wilderness, God is trusting you with more. This season isn't about surviving anymore. It's about building, planting, moving, and speaking from a place of spiritual maturity. There's an oil on your life now that you didn't carry before. And that oil came through surrender, through pressure, through pain. But now it's yours. And it's time to walk in what's been released over you. Do not minimize what you're stepping into just because your surroundings haven't caught up yet. Your spirit knows what time it is, even if your circumstances seem behind. The season has shifted, and heaven is calling you to walk like it already happened. Doors will open differently now. Conversations will carry more weight. You'll notice things others don't, because your sight has changed. This is what happens when God marks a person. Nothing feels the same because nothing is. You are in a new dimension. It won't always be loud. It won't always be obvious. But it will be confirmed by peace, clarity, and divine timing. Trust the process. Don't look back trying to understand the old season. Instead, move forward with the authority given to you in this one. A new season has already been released, and it has your name on it. Topic 6. Protection has been intensified. Elevation in the Spirit always attracts attention, not just from heaven but from hell. With every new level, new responsibility and new authority come, but so tambum vem novos attacks. That's why God never promotes without protecting. What He is building in your life is too important to be left exposed. That's why, after your obedience, a new level of spiritual covering was released over you. It's not something you earned by works, it's something you were entrusted with by alignment. While you may not see it with your physical eyes, in the unseen realm, angels have been reassigned. Your name has been marked as a vessel to protect, not just to bless. Because the enemy can't touch what God surrounds. And right now you are surrounded. Not just with hope and favor, but with holy protection. There are things that were sent to destroy you that never even reached your life, and you don't even know it. There were whispers spoken against you, weapons formed in darkness, distractions designed to derail you, and none of it succeeded. Not because you were strong enough, but because heaven intercepted them before they got to you. That's what divine protection looks like. Unseen victories. Silent interventions. God didn't need to show you what He blocked because His priority was keeping you on track. The things that tried to break you, confuse you, or delay your steps were confronted by the Spirit of God before they touched your soul. This intensified protection isn't just a promise, it's a current reality. You are being kept, hidden, guarded. Not in fear but in strategy. Because what you're carrying into this new season is sacred, and sacred things are always surrounded. Don't let current battles make you forget the level of defense that is now over your life. Even if the pressure rises, even if the opposition increases, the covering on your life has already risen to meet it. God is not reactive, He is proactive. That means He prepared your protection before the attack even formed. You may feel tension, but you're not alone in the fight. You're not vulnerable, you're covered. That's why distractions don't stick like they used to. That's why certain temptations lost their grip. That's why your mind is clearer, your discernment sharper, your peace deeper. It's not random, it's protection. And it's not temporary. It's been intensified because you've been elevated. So walk in this season boldly, not blindly. Know that heaven is watching, guiding, and guarding your every step. And what God shields, no weapon can shatter. Topic 7. Your reward won't be a secret. There is a reward reserved for those who endure in silence, who obey without needing validation, who sow in tears but still believe in the harvest. For a long time your obedience was hidden. Your faithfulness was private. You didn't obey to be seen, you obeyed because your heart was loyal to God. And now heaven is shifting the visibility of your story. The season of silent obedience is about to become the season of visible favor. Not because you need a spotlight, but because God wants to use your story as proof that surrender works. He's about to take what you did behind the scenes and honor it in front of the very people who doubted you. Your reward won't just be internal, it will be undeniable. Heaven saw in secret, but now it's preparing to reward in public. You didn't compromise to get attention. You didn't chase shortcuts or manipulate outcomes. You waited. You trusted. You chose what was right even when it meant being misunderstood, overlooked, or underestimated. And because of that, your life has become a testimony waiting to be revealed. The stage you're being called to isn't one you asked for, it's one heaven prepared for you. The same places where you felt rejected are about to become the places where God exalts you. Not to boost your pride, but to glorify His process. Your story will speak for itself. Your peace, your clarity, your favor, your restoration, they'll all become visible fruit that can't be ignored. This isn't about ego, it's about evidence. Evidence that obedience matters. That purity has power. That integrity is never wasted. You didn't just endure, you planted something eternal, and the world is about to see it bloom. God's rewards are never rushed, but they're always right on time. You thought your sacrifice was buried, but it was planted. And now, what was growing in the dark is about to break through the surface. Expect the unexpected. Unusual doors, surprising favor, divine acceleration. Things that were stuck will suddenly move. Not because you fought for recognition, but because you were faithful when no one saw. That's the kind of life heaven rewards. So don't be shocked when things start to shift. When honor replaces rejection. When invitations come from places you never imagined. God doesn't just repay, He restores with overflow. And when He decides to honor a hidden life, nothing can stop it. Your reward won't be a secret, because your process wasn't in vain. Topic 8. Stay firm, heaven is still moving. It would be easy to relax now. To assume the hardest part is over. To let your guard down because you've already endured so much. But hear this clearly, don't shift your posture now. The process isn't finished yet. Yes, breakthrough is in motion. Yes, the new season has begun. But heaven is still aligning things on your behalf. This is the moment where many people abort what they were called to carry. After the pain, after the fight, after the obedience, they grow weary and start doubting again. But God is saying, stay firm. Don't move out of alignment. Don't question what He confirmed in the quiet. What heaven started, heaven will complete. But you must remain steady in the posture that got you here. Your persistence is still part of the prophecy being fulfilled. What you can't see right now is what heaven is still orchestrating behind the veil. Angels are still moving. Hearts are still being softened. Systems are still being shifted. God isn't just answering your prayers, He's preparing you for what He's about to release. The timing may seem delayed to you, but from heaven's perspective, it's right on schedule. Every delay had a reason. Every moment of silence had a purpose. Nothing was wasted. And now that the wheel has turned, heaven is still at work, perfecting, protecting, and positioning what you need to walk fully in your assignment. Your job now is not to try to force things to happen faster, but to keep your spirit aligned with what God already showed you. Faith got you here. Faith will carry you forward. The promise hasn't changed. Stay planted. This is a holy moment. A thin space between what was and what will be. Don't contaminate it with doubt. Don't slow it down with disobedience. Keep praying. Keep showing up. Keep trusting the one who saw you through the silence. The finish line is closer than you think. What felt distant is about to become real, but only for those who remain. You're not called to just taste breakthrough, you're called to live in it. But living in it requires the same obedience that birthed it. Stay firm. Don't retreat. Don't negotiate with your old fears. What heaven started is still in motion, and when it arrives, it won't come in pieces, it will come in full. This is not the time to look back. It's the time to hold your ground, lift your head, and prepare to walk in everything you've prayed for. Heaven is still moving, don't stop now. If this word reached your spirit, If something inside you confirmed that heaven was speaking directly to your journey, then don't leave this moment in silence. Let your faith respond. Click the like button, because this message wasn't just for you, it's meant to reach others who are still fighting silently. Subscribe to this channel if you're ready to walk in deeper truth, prophetic insight, and divine timing. We're not here to entertain, we're here to align destinies with the voice of God. And if you feel led, leave a comment below. Dove, heaven saw me. Declare it, seal it, own it. Because from this point on, you're not walking unseen anymore, you're walking marked.